Welcome to Unapologetically You, an authentic journey to healing.
The podcast where we dive deep into the raw, real, and transformative process of embracing your true self.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Ashley. Join us as we share stories, insights, and practical wisdom to help you heal, grow, and live unapologetically.
Whether you're on your own healing journey or simply seeking inspiration, this space is all about embracing authenticity without fear or shame.
It's time to make a move from your relationship
to a relation shift. Welcome back. We are here today with Sue Kuligowski. And I've known Sue for a very, very long time, but I'm so excited to have her on the show. She is going to have a lot of great inspiration.
I have that too.
I've known Sue for a very long time. She's going to have some great inspo for you today. So we're excited and grateful to have Sue on the show. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Second guest. You are our second guest
Yes.
that we've ever had.
Yes. And I was telling Ashley how much depth you have and how I knew you would be perfect for the show.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I feel like you are somebody that lives her purpose.
I try to. I can't guarantee that happens every day, but I try.
Do you feel that you're in alignment with your purpose?
I think that's where I try to. I mean, every day I think I get up and it's honestly, it's one of those questions when that alarm goes off, or maybe it doesn't, depending on if I got any sleep or not. But it's, what am I facing today, and why am I doing this? And sometimes, I'm maybe a little bit more positive and inspired, and I got this. And other days it's possibly whiny and it's still dark outside, or it's cold, or it's rainy. But there's something that's just in me and driving me. And I'll be honest, it's not usually for me that I'm doing any of this. It's usually for others. And I think that that's probably the leading maybe inspiration or motivation for me getting up and doing it all.
Because you are doing such great things. I know you're running Erie DAWN.
I am. Yep.
Right? Which tell us a little bit about Erie DAWN.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit, and I've been there for 4 years. I did not start Erie DAWN. We've actually been around for 30. Wow. It was started by 3 religious orders of women, which is kind of really cool. I had grown up going to Catholic schools, and my spirituality has really increased and even developed and, beyond that in a sense, but it's such a foundation for me. So when the position kind of came, it just felt right. But it is a organization that we help women, and we help women avoiding or getting out of homeless or unhoused situations. And whatever that means is what we do. We work with local area landlords. We have housing. It's women with or without kids, and it's whatever resources that they need. We're not a shelter, and we're long term. So what we're really trying to do is help them become self-sufficient. So in doing so, we don't want them to kind of go back in that revolving door of homelessness.
So not a shelter.
Correct.
So when you say long term, what do you mean by that?
They can be in our program for up to a year, sometimes over. Shelters are typically 30 days. Sometimes there's an extension in those. But, a lot of times if you go to a shelter, and I've worked in the shelters, I've worked in a lot of programs. My focus has always been in women-focused nonprofits and human services. But, if your life is, there's a lot of obstacles or things going on, and all of a sudden trying to get your life back in order in 30 days, I mean, my gosh, I don't think a lot of my things, sometimes it takes me 30 days to make a doctor's appointment.
Right.
I mean, it's taken
consistency is where it's at.
42 years to get my life in order.
30 days is not enough. I can
still
agree.
I don't
You'd
have my
slip
life
back
together.
to where you were
Exactly.
before.
Yeah,
I would.
right.
Yeah.
So our program is a little bit more intensive. They're not living with us. It's not, it's not a housing program, on site. They have their own houses. We have houses that they live in as well, apartments. But what we're trying to do is really teach them the skills, so when they are with us and then when they leave us, that they are self-sufficient. It is, budgeting and jobs that are self-sustaining. We get a lot of women and moms that, they're working, 2, 3, 4 jobs, sometimes part-time jobs, just trying to juggle it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And I, gosh, that I don't know how they do it, but I don't want them to have to do that. I
Right.
think that that's the thing. And they come to us for all different reasons. I mean, you name it, the pandemic. I mean, I know people don't want to talk about that, but I mean, that really took a toll on top of so many other things. But that took a toll on a lot of women. Maybe kids were in and out of daycare or schools were closed, and so they'd lose their jobs or, bills. A lot of single women, that's what we work with too. It's
Right.
hard to do this all.
So you are helping these women essentially heal.
Correct.
What would you say is a good path to somebody listening that is on a path to healing? What would you say are some good steps to
Jeez.
healing?
Well, that's a question that
It's a loaded one.
yeah, it really is. And it's something that I've been trying to focus on, I would say the majority of my career. I didn't realize, I guess, when I got into this line of work, that's what I was trying to do. But also, too, I guess it's personally and professionally. And I say that not just on my end, but just, anybody that I care about and in my circles, but just also professionally. Some of the things that have really come to me, it's like we all have trauma. And I
We
think
do.
that people don't realize that. And so even the team that works for me or anybody that comes to our door, and I get somebody gave me this scenario, and she's a little bit of a spiritual mentor to me, and I don't even know that she realized this. I've told her this. We've had some amazing, beautiful conversations. But it's like women come to us, and this is just an example, but women come to us, and it's like they come to us with their, so it's a housing program in a sense, right?
Right.
So they come to us and they have their luggage, maybe, possibly. So they come to us if they have anything at all, luggage. And with this luggage, in a sense, it's typically trauma, because if they had any other resources or anybody else's support system to help them, they wouldn't be with us. They would have
Right.
something else or someone
Right.
else.
Right.
And, they come to us with this luggage, and the luggage ultimately is trauma, and it has chains on it. And so that is just such a repetitive cycle in so many of our lives. And I look at this and I look at whether it's them or my team or myself or family and friends and probably anybody and everybody I've ever met, we all have something.
We do.
And I kind of look at that luggage as symbolic. And the chains of that is symbolic, is that we're just attached to it. And I'm kind of tired of that. And I look at
Love
that coming to
I
us
love this.
of, they come to us and they're there for a little bit of time, a year or so, and unpacking some of that. But then a lot of times too, what I was seeing was that they're leaving with it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, gosh, we're just not helping. Or maybe we are a little bit. Or, in all the work I've done, I mean, I'm thinking, is it really helping? Is
Are
it
we
not?
cutting the chains?
Yeah, are we
to
cutting
that?
the
Yeah.
chains of that
Right.
luggage?
Right.
And I didn't think so. And so this spiritual kind of mentor of mine was telling me this. And I just had this, we have these little aha moments or these little epiphanies. And it was an epiphany for me. This is probably about maybe a year ago that she said this to me. And it changed things for me. And so at that moment, I thought, we don't just need housing to be self-sufficient. We don't just need financial budgeting, to be self-sufficient.
Right.
Especially as women, we need all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
We do.
What do you need to get through your days?
Right.
What do you need to heal? Well, it's
Right.
not just a day or a month or a week. Sometimes it's a lifetime.
So it is a lifetime for all of us.
For
I feel.
all of us
Yeah.
on many levels. And some of us have
It's
more
layers.
things than others, and more resources or support systems. But I'm so tired of the luggage and the chains and the trauma, personally, professionally, hearing it, seeing it. And I don't mean that in kind of this exhausted, I'm not willing to help or whatever way. It's more of, what else can we do about it? Because it's just going to keep going on and on and on and on,
Right.
So what else can we do? And there has to be more that we can do, more of the healing, so what does that look like?
Yeah.
It is more, kind of getting rid of these. And I know people don't always want to talk about this, but some of these systems, some people do really well in going into that and needing that structure, but some people don't. We, I believe that we need more of, actually the healing on, aspects of, the Reiki, and I go a little bit more holistic with things.
So let's hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's dive
What
in.
are some?
Yes,
Because
yeah.
I
Tell
think
us about Reiki. I know what it is, but
well,
there are people
yeah.
that don't know. So
Okay.
let's talk about that.
Yeah,
for them.
because I think it's important, because I think a lot of people get stuck, like you said, in the systems and the things.
Carrying
And
these
we've
chains and the
Yes.
heaviness of their
Right.
past.
well,
Right.
and we've talked about this. We do the things,
Right.
thinking that the things are going to work for a little bit. We've right, and then they don't
and they don't.
Right.
Yep.
So I want you to explain, like,
Yeah.
so what happens
Or-
when they don't? What can you keep doing?
Well, I think something you're saying too, it's kind of just sparking me a little bit, is that I think we're afraid of change. And I don't know why, because that's the one thing that is always consistent. And I think that once people lean into that a little bit more, men, women, however you identify, once you accept that, I think that you're a little bit more golden.
Yes.
And life goes a little bit better. I think that, I've grown up around that, and I've experienced that too. I'm like, we don't like change. We don't want it to change.
Right.
You have to look at yourself in your life as you're floating down a river, or maybe a lazy river. I love a good,
Right.
give me a good resort somewhere with a lazy
on a
river.
cute,
nice
relaxing
little-
sunlight coming down
Give
on
me
ya.
a burrito. And exactly, right?
Maybe a
that's
book in hand.
right. That is a nice scenario.
You're brave and a tube
So
with a
look,
book.
look at the mood right now. Even just saying that, you're kind of like, that sounds amazing. I could do,
Yeah.
let me float around, right?
Yep.
But that is movement and changing. And
Right.
that's so much of what healing is. And even with Reiki, and I know, Jenny, that you're familiar with that. You do so much of that in the energy work. And that's what it is. It's just kind of being open to that and being open to the change and the healing. And I started getting into energy and frequency when I was in probably the lowest points of my life. But I didn't know I was getting into that in a sense. I was just so kind of lost and broken and working and trying to help people and doing all these things. And I literally look at that point in my life and it was like dark and I was spinning and I was kind of just grasping not for anything, but also for something. And all of these things just kind of that were always there and so simple that were presenting themselves to me. And I thought, I'll try it out. It can't be that bad. I'm just going to sit outside and look at the sky. And I know that might sound kind of maybe ridiculous to
Not
people.
at all. Not to me, it doesn't.
It was being in those little moments or trying to find those little things because I think I kept looking for the big things or the material things. And it wasn't in that because I never found any great joy in that. It wasn't in, and not that I had these things, but I would see so many people in these things, like a big house or, all of those, the image of things. And I kept running. That's what I was trying to chase after.
Right.
And the image of even myself. And I'm like, I didn't look like, these other women, or I didn't fit into this cookie cutter lifestyle, or I was never good enough. I just never, felt that. And so I think once I started letting go of that, letting go of those chains, and kind of looking at alternative, things and putting things in my life, it just started getting softer. And so some of those things I started doing was just sitting, breathing, and it just started kind of organically happening. Dietary things. It could be so many things. I could go on about this forever,
Right.
but I would start going to meditation classes. This is funny. And not even because I wanted to get into all this breath work. I literally just liked laying there.
Right. And the
On a
stillness.
yoga mat.
Because how
Exactly.
many times in our daily life do we just do that? We don't.
Right.
It's simple,
Right.
but as humans, we just don't allow ourselves to do that.
Well, and even if we are sitting, we're usually on our phone
Right.
or watching
or your
something.
mind,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I could never shut that off ever. And I
Yeah.
still kind of don't.
which I feel like you don't need to.
Right.
You don't need to shut it off. You just need to accept and let
Yes.
go.
Exactly. Exactly. So a lot of, on my end, it was, I didn't even know things like this existed in a weird way, but just over time it was, and even people were like, oh, I can't meditate. I don't know how to do that. Well, neither did I. I'm still not great at it, but I do it every day. So a lot of that was incorporating things like that into my days and into my routine. I figured I brush my teeth how many times a day?
Right.
I can sit for a few minutes a day.
Absolutely.
A lot of it was like the sound therapy. I started doing things like that because it started calming my
Beautiful.
mind.
Yeah.
I had this kind of image of, oh, I so wish I could be that, and not even so much the material or the, this is what it should be in the corporate America, but like, how cool would it be to be that other side of things, that other woman? And I feel like I've slowly started getting into her and that. And,
So embodying.
Exactly.
It really embodying
Exactly.
these practices, because I feel like a lot of people do these practices, but they're not really embodying them. They'll do them, and then it's like they kind of make it compartmentalize, right? They put that to the side, and then they go on with their daily life. You really have to embody these practices.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And I think a lot of it too are these other little things that came to me where, and again, these are like these like like epiphanies that I had. And I wish somebody would have told me this probably as a kid. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
No one.
I love that quote you said. You said it at your event.
I did.
And that has stayed with me.
I will preach that. Like if there's a child that can hear me, if there is an adult, I mean, at any age, I will say that to anyone. No, nobody knows what they're doing.
I agree.
Because I always thought everybody did.
love that.
Yeah.
That's
They
powerful.
they had it figured out.
They did. I did.
Yeah.
I would look at everybody and go, "How does everybody know how to do this?" I'm such a
How'd you
failure.
get
I
there?
don't know. And again, I was going through like, like PhD courses and all this stuff, and and doing all the job stuff and my own home and all this, and I thought it was such a failure. I still am at times. I don't care if I fail. I'm just like, or don't do well on something. I'm like, okay, they're meant to.
Yeah.
The other piece of it, I'll just say really quick, was I had to start realizing to not be afraid of who I was.
Ooh. All right, let's kind of dive into
what does
that.
that
So,
mean?
yes.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us probably do that because, again, we want this, we think, or we want this image of whatever society or however we grow up, of what that is and what that looks like. So I grew up, in just neighborhoods, and everybody kind of looked the same, and everybody was the same, and I thought that's what I have to do. And you have to be a certain way. Well, I was never good at sports. I was kind of I'll be honest, I was like a little bit of the black sheep in my family because I would kind of go up against anything or I just didn't understand things. I remember years and years ago, I got into therapy, and my therapist said, he was like, "Sue, you are going to struggle in this." He's like, "I'm going to break something down to you." He's like, we're going to save a lot of time on things. And I was like, oh my God, what is this profound thing? And it really was. He was like, "You're going to struggle in everything because your brain just doesn't work this way. Your brain isn't, fitting into these systems because you question things, and that's okay. We need people like you." And I was like, okay, that's not so bad. And a lot of it was because, just as a child, I thought everybody was like this, but, I just had certain gifts on things. And I had to start, and we all do, but I had to start really realizing that it was okay to, accept who I was and to let all of my worlds collide and not keep things separate. So some of the things that I had were, in growing up, again, I was raised Catholic. So I was raised, specific ways in certain ways. But as a young child, I could communicate with spirits, and I would have very profound dreams of things communicating with me, or I'd have, what I realize now on my end is I would also identify and, also just, I have my, my professional career, but, I would also identify now as kind of like a psychic, medium, medical, intuitive, empath. I've become like a Reiki master over time, things like that. So energy and frequency and spirituality is extremely important to me. But I would keep all my, as all this was developing, I didn't realize it at the time when I would keep all these worlds apart because I was so afraid of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could never have this professional life. What would people think of me?
If you're doing this stuff over here.
If they thought, and honestly,
If they
too,
see you have these gifts.
oh my
these-
gosh, yeah. And I remember, I'll be honest, and I'll
psychic
tell people this because I think it's kind of funny. So I go to this therapist, and I've been seeing him for, a while at this point. And I was like, all right, I'm going to disclose to him, and he's gonna, it's time for me to go away for a while. And it was his actual response to me, because I worked in human services. I'd worked in, I'd seen all the diagnosis stuff of everything and people and all this, and I'd worked in hospitals and all this, and I was like, here we go. I'm like, so I'm going to disclose all this stuff to him, and it's, time for me to make my little hospital
Exit.
journey or something, and that's okay too. But, and so I disclosed to him, and it was, again, his response was, this is your truth. This is your reality. These are gifts that you feel you're identifying with. Everybody has something. Some people are, have, talents in sports. Some people have this. And he was like,
Right.
This is who you are. And you've had these since you said, a kid. He was like, great, to go with what feels right.
Right.
And it was almost this permission. And I don't know why I thought I needed permission, but it was like a permission to me to be a little bit of myself. And I was like, oh, okay. But I still kept, in a sense, trying to keep these worlds separate. What I found out over time was you can't keep who you are separate.
Right.
It's like I was kind of, in a sense, making myself I was leading two separate lives, and that wasn't okay.
Was it causing you stress to
Oh
do
my
that?
gosh, yeah. I think
Because
I
you
was
weren't really embracing fully who you were.
I was, yeah. And I think a lot of us do that. I think we have our, our professional personas and then our home personas. And on my end, I start to get into more of is that really being authentic then? Are you really being your real self?
Right.
And I think that people need to do more of that. And I think that there would be a lot less trauma in their lives, and if people would start just getting really real with who and what they are.
Do you feel that when we are living our authentic life, do you feel we start attracting people, opportunities that mirror that? Really our tribe, our people that are like-minded.
Yes, most definitely. And I like to use the word manifesting. But yes, most definitely. Because a lot of the things that weren't in alignment with who I was and my purpose fell away very quickly. And the things that came into my life or into my pathway, it started getting pretty great and pretty incredible. And I started getting so much better. And I think that that's what it was too. I started feeling better. I started internally and externally. I mean, I'll be honest, because it was like, okay, I'm not going against myself anymore. So, and a lot of it too, in the weirdest way, it was also so much of who I was like refining myself.
Right.
So,
how did you become comfortable with these psychic gifts? Because I do feel like a lot of people are scared of them.
yes, definitely.
I'd be scared.
They don't know
Like,
how to
no,
balance
I know,
them
people-
and how to.
And you know what the thing is? I always get people too that as soon as people know this, they're like, "Don't tell me anything bad." And I'm like, that's interesting to me that's what everybody goes to is the bad. And I'm like, no, it's such a light, beautiful thing when you're working in energy and you're working with, healing and all of that. So, I mean, I can remember, my first gifts, or not my first gifts, but my first memories of, all of this. I was, oh my gosh, probably 3 years old.
Wow.
But I also believe too, and I have, and I don't ever push my gifts on anybody, but I also believe in past lives. And I also believe in, I mean, it's kind of like, the more that I've kind of done over years, it's, my belief system has just really expanded.
Right.
I'm a lot more of, I believe in many religions, in spirituality on that aspect.
Do you, because Jenny and I are always talking about, I'm a big believer. Do you believe in like the angel numbers? Because I know people see those and they're like, my direction is what these numbers are telling
11,
me.
22.
Explain
I'm
those.
always seeing double letters.
yeah.
What
All
do
the
those
time.
mean? Like what when people
yeah.
are seeing those?
So I believe that, that there are, these higher powers, I will call it, like spirits is kind of my reference, or souls is like what I refer to as those that have passed on. I refer to, we have our guardian angels protect us. We have our spirit guides that help guide us spiritually on this physical plane or planet.
Those are different, right?
Those
Your
are different.
angels are different than your
Correct.
spirit guides.
Correct.
Okay.
In my thought, in my belief system, and then, but also too that this, universe, or in these spirit guides, or whatever it is, these higher powers, are giving us little nudges, or giving us little signs or symbols. And so maybe it's numbers that we're always seeing. Maybe it's, a lot of times you'll hear people saying, "Oh, I saw a cardinal today. That made me think of, so and so." I believe in those things. And if at that moment that they see a cardinal and they think of, "Oh, I thought of maybe, a grandmother that passed away or something," that means something.
Absolutely.
And I think it doesn't mean anything to me. It means something to them.
Right.
And that's what they hold to them. One of my things are feathers. So that's always been one of my things. But I think everybody's are different, and they have to figure out what that is. It was like this past winter, and it was like one of our snowstorms, one of the many.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
And
Oh my gosh, we had a brutal
opened
winter.
up the back door, and it was, it was like a late night. I had a dog. I was letting him out, and there was like a big black feather sitting out on
the snow?
like on the
Random,
step.
right? Yeah.
Very random.
And I'm thinking, okay, so like on my end, black feathers are, it's a protection.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And so like all I do at that moment is I see it, and I was like, oh, why is that there? It was blowing in snow, and it was literally like almost like placed right there. And so I thought, okay.
Beautiful
And
sign.
so
Yeah.
I acknowledge and recognize that, the universe, or, spirit guides or whatever, that's some kind of a communication. And I just acknowledge it at that moment and kind of take note of it that, okay, it's some kind of a protection piece for some reason. And so I kind of keep that in the back of my mind of what's going on, or where am I at right now, or what's happening in my life.
There's some rituals that you do on a daily basis.
Because I feel like it's hard to get knocked out of it.
Yeah.
With the things that go on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And
Just
life
like,
brings us challenges.
Yes.
And like you said, sometimes you wake up, it's a dark day. You're like, oh, I don't even know if I want to get out of bed. I'm not saying you, but just in general,
Oh, no,
right?
that happens. Believe me, that happens.
So what are some of your daily
Yeah.
rituals to stay in alignment?
Yeah.
And
I have my morning routine.
Okay.
Is always I have dogs, so I gotta get up, deal with the dogs, right? So that's kind of knocks all that stuff out. But I always have to do either my coffee or my tea, but I feel like that is a piece of it too, because as I'm doing that, that's very ritualistic to me, because as I'm doing it, I'm putting a lot of intention in that. And people don't realize too, even things like that, any kind of things that they're ingesting, any kind of beverages, preparation, you kind of put energy and anything into that, because you're putting that into your body.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with, I'm putting love into this, I'm hoping that I'm having a great day or whatever, and then drinking that. So it could be little things like that, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe
The
it's
little
more of
things
like a placebo
mean a
effect,
lot.
but it's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do morning meditation, and even kind of corny little things, on social media. I'll find positive things. Or
I
I'll
love
find,
that. You're always putting up a lot of inspo
uplifting
on there.
things.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm constantly following astrology and moon cycles and what's going on with that. I try to pay attention to a lot of that because, and not everything.
Do you do the moon water?
I do moon water. Yes, I do.
what's moon water?
When you
Go ahead, Sue.
So, on the moon cycles, you can put water out, and it can become, in a sense, kind of more powerful, or I'll say enhanced, like in a sense like that, but same thing, and in a sense like kind of
a
like
little prayer with
Yes,
it,
yeah.
and
and then
a little
you
prayer.
can drink it. You can use it for whatever you want. You
Bathe,
can bathe
salt
in it.
baths.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
I do a lot of like the salt baths. I do. What else do I do? I have even like little. I'll call them like little shrines around my house where, I have certain candles and photos for certain things. Like I have one that's for gratitude for the universe and a higher power that I light, and it's just like thank you so much. I have one that is for my spirit guides and guardian angels and my loved ones, and I'm like I miss you, thank you, whatever, and I'll just do prayers with that. I think people they're more comfortable with words like prayer, because I think that's what our society tells us. So on my end, it's just a different word.
Right.
It's like, a meditation or a whatever that may be. So some people are better with the word prayer.
Right. Yeah.
Or, whatever that is. So at the end of my day, I always, always, always reflect, because I'm human. I'm very human. Yep. And sometimes I am very human and I'm not a great person.
I can talk all this stuff.
Oh my God,
that.
yes.
I mean, we're human, like you said.
Ask my friends and family. They'll be like, listen, got to check myself.
Yeah.
I always check myself, and I'm fine doing that. And I know what my faults are. And I'm harder, probably like us, all of us, right?
Yeah.
I'm harder on myself than anybody else.
Same. But the fact you have awareness, and it's that you strive to be a better person, that says a lot about truly who you are at the end of the day, your character. I mean, you're such a beautiful person inside and out.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I have a lot of work to do.
We all do.
Kind of going back to the beginning of all this, that's kind of my motivation of like, I'm not done on myself. Because I know that there's more that I can help others with, and there's more that I can help myself with. And I'll be honest, I never had, I think it's a beautiful thing when you hear of a child or a young adult, and it's like, well, what do you want to do in your life? Oh, I want to become a veterinarian. I'm like, how do they know that?
Right.
How do they know that? I don't know.
Right.
I went through my career, I'm in my mid 40s, but I went through my career, all the school stuff or whatever, and it like literally organically happened. I never had plans for that ever.
Yes, so you had gotten your doctorate a little bit later in philosophy. What prompted you to do that? Which I commend you for doing that. How long ago did you get your doctorate?
It's been 4 years.
Congratulations.
Yes. It took forever.
That's amazing. Congrats.
I'll tell everybody I'm not the smartest by book person ever. I mean, it was a struggle for me to get through everything because I had life happening. I did it all. I was working full time. I did that full time. I loved after when I was just about done. I had one of the professors, he was like, wait, you did all this full time? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, this program wasn't designed for full time. I was like, wait, you're telling me this now?
Yeah. After I've done it. Yeah.
But I think if they would have told me that before, I would have never finished.
Yeah.
But it just kind of happened. I got through undergrad because that's what you were supposed to do at the time. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. And got out of that, and I was in a relationship. Thought that was going to kind of go a certain way. It did not, thank the heavens. And then I was just kind of, that was like in my mid-20s, and I was like, dating and working and all this stuff back in Erie, and was here in a sense for that, but also for my family. And then I thought, maybe I'll try a little bit of like a class or two for a master's. Other people were doing it, but I always thought that was like, those are other people. I was not smart enough to do that. I could never, but I thought, a class. And there was a couple of people that just gave me a chance. There was a professor, he was like, just do it, try it out. And I thought, okay. And I did it. And I was like, oh, I did okay with it. So did that and kind of went on from there. And I was like, okay. So then I got through that program and did pretty well with it. And I was like, God, like I was probably more surprised than anybody. I was like, who knew? Like who knew? And I shouldn't say that. People that knew me from way back when, they're like, really? And I was like, I know. Like it was like this weird, like, I was a party girl back in the day. I mean, it was like, And so then when I was done with that program, I actually applied to the PhD program, I didn't tell anybody, not thinking I could get in. And I got in. And I'll tell you the story because I think it's like hysterical. And there's a couple of people that remember this. First day of class, and everybody's in this class. And
for the PhD.
For the
first
PhD.
Day, okay.
And these are some of like friends and colleagues now. And I was a mess. I was so nervous. These people are like highly accomplished. I was not.
You're like, why am I here?
No, I was imposter syndrome. No, this was like big time. These people were like, I've accomplished this. I have all these awards. I go in there. I'd worked in nonprofits. I was like, and they were like, what brings you joy? What is something that brings you joy in your life? And these people are going around. They're like, oh, I've gotten this. I've gotten this award. I've invented this. I've done this. And I was like, I've done this in my career. And I was like, I literally did nothing. And I'm not just saying this. I was just like, oh my God, like what? I was like panicking. And I was like, well, what brings me joy? So it's my turn, right? You're like, what brings you joy? Well, there used to be a bar in Erie, Scotty's Martini Bar.
Uh-huh.
Maybe he's listening. It's like, what brings you joy? And I was like, white chocolate martini at Scotty's Martini Bar. And I thought it was going to be funny.
That.
And it was like dead silence. And I was like,
oh no, all eyes on you.
You're like, no, I'm serious.
And it was like, next, and it was like this moment. But I was like, but that was so me.
Yeah.
That was so me.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I look back on that moment, and nobody remembers this, I'm sure. But like, I look back on that moment, and I'm just like, man. But it was like the posturing everybody else was doing. And again, that was kind of one of my moments of, again, I wish people maybe would have been a little bit more authentic because I think that was me being authentic.
Yeah,
also being
right.
a
Love that.
mess.
Right.
But it was one of those moments so I left there sobbing.
Oh.
Not because of that moment, but I was just like, I can't keep up with
Felt
these people.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
Completely. So, but got through that program, and then it was like, again, one of those moments of like, I did this. I don't know what to do or how to do, or why did I do this? And I think it almost killed me to do the program. It was really tough, but I did it. And I just had women mainly, but other people too, that were inspiring me to get through the program. And I looked at a lot of that. And I had so many moments of, I can't do this. And other people are like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
which is great to have such a strong support system and
Yes.
to have strong people in your corner
Right.
that believe in you.
Exactly. And you need just a couple.
Yes,
And
I agree.
And there was people, and Jenny, I know you heard me talk about this too, but there was just a couple people, for some reason, I don't know why, that a couple people that had some kind of little belief in me or something, or helped me rise up a little bit.
I believe the right people come in our life when we're ready for it. You were
Yeah.
ready. You
Yep.
were you were
Yeah.
ready for it.
And so I will always do that for others, and
I love that.
I've always been the underdog, because I've always been like the black sheep or whatever, but and so I recognize that in others, and I'm like, if somebody wants a shot at something, and it's, why not, and try to help others, because we all come from stuff and we all have
do.
these things, and it's like, so if they just need a chance and somebody to believe in them, why not?
And we're all underdogs in certain things because nobody is good
Yes.
at everything.
Exactly.
So we all need help in certain areas of our life and certain things. Everybody does, whether they admit it or not.
Oh, totally. And it took me a long time to admit it, and I think a lot of people don't admit it because we want to seem like we have it all
Or
together.
too proud to ask for help
Or
or to
if you
ask for
say
support.
out loud that you don't, it's scary because if you keep believing I have it together, then whatever challenges are coming your way, it makes it easier to navigate. If you have to admit that you don't, now that's a little scary, right? Because I know there's things that I can't handle or that I'm not going to handle easily.
Right.
But I
That's
feel like
hard.
when in those moments when you are very honest with yourself and Ron, you say like, wow, like I don't have this part of my life together, or my life's turning to shit, or whatever it might be. I feel like that is that same moment when growth really happens, when you can admit to yourself where you need help or where you need the support.
Well, I think that's the problem with healing too. Everybody
hard
very
to look
quickly wants to say, I'm healed. I'm over that. I let that go. That doesn't bother me anymore. In all actuality, it's hard to say that still hurts.
Like you said, it's a lifetime.
That still makes
it's
me
a
upset.
lifetime.
Yeah.
We're all working.
Because
We're
you don't
all
want people to
work
say,
in progress.
"Oh God, you're still hanging on to that."
I know. I just had a conversation with someone the other day, and we talked about how it's like you remember the bad things. You still do.
Me and you have had a show.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
talked about that on one of our shows.
Yep.
It's easier to remember the bad things.
Yeah. Somebody could tell you 55 great things about yourself, but then you're like, oh, but there was that kid when I was 7 years old, and they told me this one thing, and you're like, I'm still holding on to it.
Yep.
We do.
We
And
do.
I
But
don't
like
know why,
it's the
but we do.
chains. It goes back to the beginning of what we first started talking about when you say that we're attached to a luggage, to chains.
Yeah.
It's cutting those chains.
Exactly. And I think that there's so many of us that were put on this planet to break the chains and to help others do that too, and to help others rise and to heal in some way or some capacity, and to really be our authentic selves. And that's something that I preach day in and day out. I have to do it for myself. I mean, maybe it's a selfish thing, but I preach that to my team at Erie DAWN. I preach that to anybody that will listen, anybody I know. Be your authentic, genuine self. I don't want to see the other crap. If you're having a bad day, I have bad days all the time. Just say you're having a bad day. If you're like, listen, I can't do this, just say that. It's like, that's okay to say that and say, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't know what my next move is. That's okay.
It's all part of the human existence.
Exactly. Because I think that we are so trained, or we think we have to keep up with everybody and everything of like, what's the next goal? What's happening? What's going on? Do you have it all together? Did you do all this? Is it this image of what you think it should be? Who cares?
And I feel like who taught us to identify with grief and sadness and anger as negative emotions? It's all part of the human existence.
Right.
But the minute that as humans you feel one of those emotions, you want to run from it.
Right.
But that is when it persists. That's when we repress all of that baggage.
Right.
And
because
it's
feels
unhealthy.
bad, right? Because
bad,
it feels bad, and
We're uncomfortable,
you don't want to feel that. Like, get rid of that as quickly as possible. That feels yucky.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's almost. I've thought about this a lot, actually, because I'm thinking probably because we're taught to shove it away.
Where I teach my kids to release it.
Say la-di-da. It'll all be better.
If my daughter's crying, I let her go.
Yeah.
Because I know that's such a release.
Yeah.
I remember I had a class, and it was a spirituality class, and it was fascinating to me. It was on all different cultures. And one of the things that the American culture does is typically, funerals. We pack them in 3 days, done, poof, done. We're supposed to be better after that.
Yeah, right.
And I was thinking, no. I have a dog that passed away. She was my soulmate.
Oh, I am so sorry. That's awful.
It was a year ago. I still cry all the time. And I'm thinking, nobody's going to tell me that, it's been a year, It's like, no, you need to, I always say, you need to feel your feels.
I think the people that makes feel uncomfortable are the people that don't feel their feels.
Exactly.
People that feel their feels, it's not going to make them uncomfortable
you're
because
gonna be
they're
like,
used
girl,
to.
I see
Just
you.
like if my daughter's crying, I let her go because I know how healthy that is to release that, to release that sadness.
And then she's probably better afterward.
Literally within a
out.
few minutes, it's over. It's
Exactly.
done. But that's a healthy way.
Exactly. And I think we need to stop running from things like that, because all that does is when we're taking that and we're keeping it and we're stuffing it in, right?
It's coming out one way or
the
another.
trauma.
It's either coming out
That's the
unhealthy or in a healthy way.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the trauma that we drag around with us then.
So at the end of the day, when all these hats, because you're a powerful woman,
I don't know about that.
so when all these hats are taken off,
Yes.
who is Sue?
Oh, geez. Well, that's a loaded question. You know, that's a loaded question. I think I'm someone that's always learning. I always tell everybody I'm a nerd. People kind of get weird with that, but I'm like, I'm a sponge. I'm a nerd. I'm always learning. I think that I will be learning until my last breath. So that's definitely something about me. I will always look at myself and be okay to hear, things about myself and take that in and reflect on that. But I really want to make a change in this world for the better, in whatever I can do in whatever capacity I could do. My focus has always been with women, but it's, I love all humans and all life. But it's that because I think I know on my end of, pieces of like what it's like to have things stacked against you. And so, and not that I didn't have, people in my life of, supporting and helping me rise, but what can I do with the kind of crazy things that have happened and come into my path? Because I feel like this is a big responsibility of, being on this little bit of a platform I am, to help others. So I think that that's a lot of it. And just ultimately being okay with myself and being okay with my character and having some integrity. And so because I'm the one that has to put my head down on my pillow at night, try to get some sleep, and then start it the next day.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Just like
You're
taking-
single.
Yes,
Do you believe in soulmates?
I
I
do
love
believe
that
in
question.
soulmates.
Okay,
I
good.
So
do.
tell me
there's
your
hope for the
definition.
rest
So
of us.
to you, what is the definition? Like for
Okay.
you, what is the definition of soulmate?
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah.
Well, I know she would, obviously I know Sue,
Yeah.
and I know we've
Yeah.
talked a little bit about dating.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. So, it's interesting. So this comes up a lot. So I'm in my mid 40s and I've never been married. So this is always like kind of like a weird, interesting, hot topic.
Yeah.
Because people are like, first of all, it's like what, why, who can I set you up with somebody and what's wrong with you?
but that's also the
And
systems, right?
is,
Of a
right.
belief system that those people have.
And so I'm kind of always like, I'm like, here we go. And I've also I didn't have kids. And so that's another thing too, that I'm like, here we go. I'm like, so I'm just like ready for it.
Yeah.
But I do believe in soulmates. And I think that that's I know that that's why I never have been married. Because I have not met my soulmate. Now, I do believe you can have soulmates on many levels.
Me too.
I have friends that are soulmates. My dog was my soulmate. But you can have many people in your life or lives in your life that are that. But when it comes to, for me, male soulmate, I have not met him yet. I'm hoping when and if I do, then obviously I would know that. But nobody has been, in a sense, my equal to that because I want them to bring to the table what I bring to the table. Now, trust me, I have met a lot of men that, try to come to the table that I'm like, okay, you can have, no, okay, bye-bye.
You're like, you're setting up this table
What do
too long.
you struggle with? Do you struggle with if it doesn't happen? Like, how do you get past? What if I don't? Or do you
I'm
think?
okay with
Or
that
do
now.
you think
Oh, yeah.
it does for everybody? Or is there? Because I think a lot of people I get scared. I'm like, I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life.
I'm okay, but I've gotten to a space that I am so okay with myself and my life, and I love my life. I love my home. I love all the stuff I'm doing. There's always more. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I have other things I want to be doing, but I am so okay with that it's like if somebody comes along, they just need to compliment my life. It's almost like the way I can put it is I'm dating myself, right? And I know that's a weird scenario, but
No,
like,
that's a
they're
beautiful place to
competing-
be in.
They are competing with me in my life at this point, like to
Nice.
be able to fit in.
Okay.
And for that to be okay. Now, I date a lot. I've dated a lot. I've been in serious relationships, but when it ultimately comes down to it, do I really want to have my life with this person? No. Because I look at some of the big things in life and going through some of the big things in life. Is that your partner? Is that who you want to go through these things with? And are they going to treat you in a sense of how you deserve to be treated? Now that's something too. I
Yeah.
will say you have to know your worth. It took me a long time
You
to
do.
know my worth.
I am
Yeah.
going to
Long time.
rebuttal that because you are absolutely
Yeah.
right. You have to know your worth.
Yeah, there was times that I've dated.
Or you're going to date people that don't know your worth.
Exactly. And I did that for a while. And I was like, oh, maybe this is my person. And, we'll get married. But then it was really, I knew in my soul. I knew in my soul it wasn't my person. So that's where I'm at now is like, I can feel it. I listen to my intuition. That's huge.
Yeah.
So,
What advice would you give to somebody listening on how to tap into their intuition with all things?
Yeah.
geez, I think that you get those little nudges. Sometimes I think it is a little bit difficult with trauma. Sometimes boundaries can be broken down or swayed, in our lifetimes. But I think that you have to go with what feels right. You have to go with what feels good in your life. I think ultimately you kind of know. If it's not right. I mean,
Yeah, we always say
Do
that.
you
Deep
feel when
down.
something feels expansive, you kind of feel you feel your heart opening.
Yes.
Your body just feels good.
feels
You
good.
have the good feels.
You don't exactly. You don't.
There's
get
not
the-
confusion
there's not
attached to it.
confusion. There's not. You're spinning. You're thinking on it. There's not. What about this or what about this?
Or that sick feeling in your gut.
I was
That is
gonna
a
say-
bet to me. That's when I know. Okay, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, I think that there's levels to it. It's like, is it, your body physically has to feel right. Your emotions have to feel right. Your spiritual self has to feel right. Mentally, you have to feel right. If all of those things and more aren't in alignment, bye-bye.
But it's interesting because you're naming all those things, and I agree with you. But when something feels right, they all just click. Like
They
you wouldn't
click.
even have to think about them because
Correct.
everything just feels good.
You don't have to ask yourself.
You don't
is
even have
this
to go through the
fear?
checklist. It
Like,
just-
right?
you
Is this
know.
this or is this
flows.
this?
Right.
You're saying everything.
Correct.
There's no question.
There's not a resistance. So I look at things this way, and sometimes I'm better with visuals. So the lazy river, if all of
Yeah.
a sudden you're then going against a stream,
Ah.
and all of a sudden
So tall.
Yep, exactly. And you're going to feel any kind of a resistance, then
And when there's not a resistance,
Exactly.
I'm on the right path.
Do you think sometimes we can
Everything.
feel a
Yeah,
resistance
yeah.
because we're scared, though?
That's where
That
I
could
get
be.
tripped
Yeah,
up.
but I think that you're going to see many resistances. So think about like even a job. Maybe you're at a job, and you're just like, oh man, this isn't right, or this isn't right, or whatever it is, right? But there's going to be a lot of resistances and a lot of days that you're miserable, whatever it is. If that's what you're experiencing, I think that that's different. It's not just a bad day or a little bit or
or
whatever.
a feeling
like
that
Right.
dissipates immediately. This
Correct.
is something
Right.
that it's a constant.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think things just line up too. I
Me
think
too.
timing is huge. I think that it'll just be presented to you.
I do too.
To be disrespectful whatsoever, but in my upbringing, I think I was taught with so much of the faith that I was brought up in was it looked like one thing, or it was one thing. When I started, for me, letting go of that, it expanded my mind so much more. And so I got into more of like a spirituality aspect of things I let go of what the image of what it was, and I got more into the lessons of what it was, and being being a good person and helping others and all of that. So I look at it more on a universal level of things, and how everything is so interconnected, and there's no such thing as consequence. Everything is so interconnected, and there's a divine purpose for everything, and it's so much bigger than I think our little minds could ever comprehend, and we have to understand that piece of it.
I love that.
And so when we are given little things like numbers or feathers or birds or deer or whatever it is, little signs, animals, that those things are all very purposeful, because they don't just happen. And so I look at things of, whatever words that we are taught to use, whether it's the word like prayer, or a word like, meditation, or, reflection, or whatever. It has to be something you're comfortable with. And I had to start kind of breaking the chains from those things that I was taught, and expanding it more, because it felt more comfortable to me to kind of go with the flow of everything. And it really it was like eye-opening to me. It was almost seeing everything in bigger, brighter colors, I'll put it that way, when I started allowing myself to not look at things in such a restrictive, stereotypical way, and not looking at things of that religion is bad or those beliefs are bad. Because when I really started looking at everything, and whether it was traditional religions of the world, and then incorporating more of like spirituality, I was like, it's all so similar.
It is.
Yeah.
And I have to, and I started looking at it like that. So, and just how connected it was, and just, it made me look at people in such a different way, in the history of the world in such a different way. I'm like, wow, we are so much more connected than we ever realized.
There's a book I read probably about 5-6 years ago by Thomas More, A Religion of One's Own. And that book talks exactly how you just described it. It's so beautiful. It breaks down all religions, and all religions at their core are good. And how God is everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in that.
I
But
do
that
too.
it is just such a great book.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to,
And it softens your heart
It
and have
does.
compassion for all religions.
it does. And I think I go back to, everything is energy, everything is frequency, everything is spiritual. And once you start kind of getting into that, and almost like literally the flow of everything, and you're floating down a river, or whatever, image you want to use, it makes sense to me. And that's what feels right to me.
But it's really living
Living it. Yes.
embodying it, feeling it.
Right. Yes, I agree. I totally agree. I'll kind of go back to, it helped me start looking at things so much different, accepting myself, my gifts for who I am, and not being afraid of that, because I think I was running from myself for so long. But it really started helping me to become so much more my authentic self.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being
Yes.
here with us.
Great
And this,
show.
yes, we're so grateful for you.
Thank you.
If you have a story you'd like to share, or if there's a specific topic you'd like us to cover on the podcast, we'd love to hear your ideas.
Get in touch with us through email or our social media pages. Links below.